Chapter 12. Max. Max, I can't leave you alone here until I get someone to come in and take care of you. What is Jonas talking about? I don't need anyone to take care of me. I'm a strong, healthy man, and I can do for myself. I don't want cleaning people stumbling about peering at me like I'm an animal in a zoo. I need privacy to think and plan for Alex to come back home to our family and to me. This is a new house for fuck's sake, and I don't want cooks coming in and out, and who the fuck knows what they prepare in Texas. One of those large grilled steaks to give me a heart attack. If I wanted to shorten my life, I'd get one of those porterhouse at any one of those restaurants that seem to be on every corner, I explained. I thought about what I'd say to Jonas first, and if I'd said what I wanted, he'd probably take me to a psychiatrist. I've lost my mind. And that's because Alex isn't here. I should have told her how much I appreciated and loved her, but I didn't, and now it may be too late, and I don't know if I'll ever see her again or whether she'd want to see me. Hell, she wouldn't recognize me if she did come back. I need peace, and I need to find Alex. Jonas? What have you done to make that a priority? All this talk about someone to take care of me isn't going to get me closer to my Alex. I have no family until she comes back to me and our children, I thought. I suppose you'll call a limo and a driver to take me to the doctor's office. I can drive myself to the doctor. It's about a half-hour away. So what do I need with someone driving me around? What's the point of living where no one knows who you are? Then call attention to yourself by having a limo parked at your door. However, I didn't say that to Jonas. He's been trying his best to be the big brother now, and I appreciate it. I don't need that kind of disturbance. Who do you think I am? I'm not an invalid. I softened my tone. I can care for myself, Jonas. I'm still Maximilian Blackstone. I strode around to look over my property, with the fence protecting my privacy from the world and nosy neighbors. I liked this place, and I'll get around to telling Jonas, but first I had to settle this argument about someone to take care of me. I was doing fine when you weren't around. You had one task, and that was to keep Alex safe. When you were fucking those young girls and getting into all kinds of trouble, I was getting you out of that trouble. I tried not to say those things to Jonas, but it appeared it was hard to change overnight, and I kept falling back into my old self. I managed to put my foot in my mouth again, because when I glanced over at Jonas, he had his hands in his pockets and staring down. I was being a dick again. I didn't want to lean on him or anyone. I didn't want my brother to know how upset and out of it this whole year had been. It had bent me. This thing with Alex almost broke me. When it came to Alex and Jonas, I'd made so many mistakes, and that has always been my tragic flaw. To speak quickly, to act quickly, and think I could do everything myself, and now I can't. I'm sorry, Jonas. I shouldn't have talked to you the way I had. You've been with me through this, and you tried to warn me, but I never took the time to tell you how much I've appreciated and relied on you. But instead I'm shouting at one of the most important persons in my life. All because I can't handle this anymore. Whatever you do now, I'll show gratitude instead of trying to find fault, because the fault for all this lies with me. I stared at Jonas, and it had always been like looking at myself in the mirror, but soon it won't be. And perhaps that lies the problem. I strolled over to Jonas and tapped him on his back, and when he turned, I grabbed him around his waist and placed my head on his shoulder. You know what and who I need. Make it possible. Make it happen for me, Jonas. I'm leaning on you now. I knew it was a lot to ask of him, but I needed him like I never had before. I'm trying, Max, but your mental health has suffered more than you realize. I see the changes in you because of that accident and the new face. You really should see a therapist. I don't need a therapist now, I barked. I need Alex. I'm back to not sleeping. That alone could be devastating. If you go without sleep for too long, you know what that will mean. I bet if you'd known you'd need her the way you do and did, you'd never acted like the dick you were. I grew silent. I wasn't used to men talking to me that way. Even Jonas. Instead of chewing Jonas out, I laughed. You know, you're right. I've been a dick so long that I don't know how to be anything else. However, I'm going to change, and starting today. I have a new face, a new home. Why not a new way of viewing things and people? I'm going to start, and perhaps when or if Alex comes back to me, she will see that I've changed. That's a lot. You can't be someone else overnight, dear brother, and you know I'm telling you the truth, but you can try, and if you try long enough, something might stick. Remember what your doctor said, baby steps. You have to get comfortable with your new face, but it's going to take time. Tomorrow is when the bandages come off. I didn't tell Jonas because that was what I'd been dreading. A face that wouldn't attract Alex anymore. Some say it's that physical attractions that brings two people together, and then the smell. I closed my eyes because I can imagine how she smelled the first night we had sex. It was intoxicating. Let's have a beer and a sandwich, sit outside on the patio near the pool, I said. I don't want to go to a restaurant. Not today. There's enough food in the fridge and cabinet to outlast The Walking Dead. Jonas chuckled. I opened the pantry door, selected sourdough bread and mayo, and headed to the fridge. What were you thinking? I questioned him with a raised my eyebrow. When I glared at Jonas, he was shaking his head with a closed smile. I guess too much binge-watching of The Walking Dead can do that to you. Shaking my head. What do you say? How about we eat, get acquainted with each other again, before you have to see the new face? We can pretend like we were when we were young, and had only each other to talk to and play with. You tell me your secrets and I'll tell you mine, I said. Jonas's closed smile had been taken over by a furrowed brow and a narrowed, startled look. That was the same look he had when we found out we were fucking the same girl in high school. We didn't know, but she did. I dropped her because I never liked to share with anyone, including my brother, not even a toy. I didn't mean that. I apologized. That's why they called them secrets, right? Secrets are to remain secret. I wouldn't want you in my head because you'd be stunned at what you'd find. Although there aren't many secrets between twins, are there? As I spoke, Jonas had the sandwiches made when he handed me my plate and a Heineken. And as they said, we took the show on the road, and in our case the backyard. Sitting, we ate as we glanced around at the landscaping and fence. Trees dotted the back, and they appeared to be everywhere, making the yard a paradise for squirrels and birds, who knows what else. I missed this. I missed the quiet and my children, and most of all Alex, who brought a certain amount of saneness to our lives. Jonas glanced over at me, after placing the lip of the beer bottle to his mouth, then setting it on the table. If you don't want this house, I'm going to buy it. Maybe I'll find a woman who will overlook my faults and my fucked up life, Jonas added. What are you saying that? Because it had been fucked up, and I was responsible for getting Alex involved in all kinds of mischief. Mischief was a soft word. He'd gotten her involved with things that could have cost her life. You and Alex should be sitting here, and your children swimming and chasing squirrels. Jonas sighed along with me. My children are too old to chase squirrels, I chuckled. You know what I'm trying to say, Max. Don't be difficult, especially when I'm trying to pour my heart out to my big brother. I just wanted to change the subject. I didn't want to think about what could have become of Alex. I'm feeling down and you should ask for a referral to a good therapist. I had one. Now please don't suggest going for therapy again. You know it's been a long time since I've been to one, and that was because I wasn't sleeping. Alex solved that. And that's why you need to speak to someone. I'm talking to someone. I'm talking to you, my brother, about my problems. Jonas stood and strolled around and placed his hands in his pockets and stared into the pool. Then he turned to face me. I'm not the one who can help you. I need help myself. Then Max's phone rang and he put it on speaker. Mr. Blackstone, you have an appointment with Dr. Raymond Martinez tomorrow at 9 a.m. If you can't make it, contact him immediately. The number is 713. I cut the nurse off, informed her that I had all the information, and I hit the button, because I knew what had to be done even if I didn't want to face it. There would be a new me, and it would take time getting to know him, even if I hadn't put to rest the old face. Can we talk about Alex? I paused, and Jonas found a chair facing me. What is it you want to talk about? Did Alex have any feelings for that man she married? Of course not. When she got her chance, she got away from him, even if she had to jump into the ocean. She wanted to get back to you and her children. The authorities suspect her of killing him, but they can't prove it. They think you helped her, did you? All I can say now is she didn't kill Christian. He was hated by the entire crew aboard that yacht, and he'd been known to have at least 2 wives and a sister, and some of those women went missing while aboard the ship. Do you think Alex survived? If anyone could, Alex could. I haven't given up looking for her. You have a lot to think about, and I have someone on the case. He'll have something for me soon. Get some rest, Max, because tomorrow is going to be a new day. You can do whatever you want, and no one will know you. Me, on the other hand, people will assume I'm you. I wouldn't want to be in my shoes. Chapter 13. Jonas. I panicked when Max wanted to exchange secrets. I had all night to wonder about that. Even woke up in horror about Alex and Christian. Did he know something, but would wait and tell me later? Did he feel what I'd been feeling lately about Alex? I just needed time to find her on my own, but I've had all kinds of tasks to do for Max. Like purchasing this house. I'm not a magician the way he thinks. He had me sitting in for him at meetings, where he could be somewhere else across the continent. He had me taking over the role of a father, when he should have been doing that himself. The only thing he didn't want was me to take over the role of being a husband until he did some asinine shit, and then he wanted me to protect her the way he should have and didn't. What more does he want from me? To give up Alex when I find her because he's afraid to look for her, because she'd reject him and choose me instead? I don't know what the fuck Max wants from me. I'm just a man, and for once I'm deeply in love with Alex. However, I know to have her, I have to give her up. I'm a man, and I'm in love with his wife, and I'm his brother, and any jury would bring me in guilty. The only problem is Alex doesn't love me, and will never love me the way she loves Max, and because of that, I know I have to leave once I find her, so my brother can have the life they both wanted with each other. Are you ready, Max? Max ambled out of the bedroom, as if he was a dead man walking. Unsure if he wanted to live or die. Unsure if he wanted to give up and accept the inevitable, living without Alex. I had the same thoughts, and we must have been a pair. I want to do this alone. I need to drive myself to the surgeon's office. What I want you to do is talk to that investigator, and if Alex survived, then I need to know one way or the other. I don't want you to waste time with me. I'm good. I can handle what comes my way. When I glanced over at Max, he was holding on to the back of a chair. He wasn't good. He appeared weak, and it could be because of not sleeping properly. He knew that sleeping pills would be a waste of time. It was only what Alex could do for him that would have him sleeping at night. If you can drive yourself, then I'll call an Uber to take me around, so go ahead. I see you like to drive in bumper-to-bumper traffic, not me. I watched as Max stepped under the wheel of the rental and drove away. I had a lot to do today, and the first thing I did was call a taxi. When I stepped out of the investigator's office, Max had used many times in the past to investigate some of his partners who'd been interested in his hotels in Houston. The Uber had been waiting and texting me, wondering if he was going to get paid for the extra wait. I assured him and gave him my credit card information. It was about 6 p.m. when I strolled out of the building and entered the Uber. I hadn't eaten at all that day in the guy's office, except for a bagel and coffee the secretary offered as an enticement to keep me there. She even offered me a blowjob as an incentive. I may have taken her up on it years ago, but after being with Alex, I'd become cold to every female I'd come into contact with. It had been unusual for me not to take advantage of the Blackstone name and face. That had been easy because the minute they heard Blackstone, they knew if they could get my cock in their mouths that had it made. That used to be then, and it was true. Max had paid off women to keep them quiet from one coast to another. When I met a woman, I never knew if they wanted me or my money, and that had left a bad taste in my mouth and my brother's indignation. He'd say to me, "Can't you keep your cock in your pants? It's costing me and you thousands to pay all these women off." Therefore, when the attractive blonde offered me coffee and a chance to relax, I refused. I stood and stretched because I'd been sitting for hours because the investigator had kept me waiting while he was at lunch, and then dinner, or having his dick sucked. I was hungry and needed a drink when he sauntered into the office and had little information about Alex. It was my first thought that he knew how important this job had been, and he wanted to drag it along as possible. The only reason I didn't say fuck it was because Max had been calling me since he'd returned home, and I didn't want him questioning me because I had no answers. I stepped into the Uber after a quick meeting and headed on my way to Max's new place. I'd asked the driver to recommend a place where I could get something hot to eat. He said he knew a bar along the way to the ranch. I'm sure that wasn't the best place to eat, but I needed a strong drink foremost, and those restaurants that served food, their main priority wasn't liquor but food. The Uber driver swung around off the freeway, as if he'd been paid to drop someone off at this biker bar. When he drove up to the door and briefly parked, motor running, he said, "I hear they just took on a new waitress who can use a whip on a man. Damn, but I'd like a gal like that. Sometimes a man gets out of control and needs someone to rein them in. You know how we men are?" Yes, I do. Max and I had been that way all our lives. It was Alex who saved both of us, and now she's gone. I was brought back to the conversation at the sound of the driver's Texas drawl. "I hear she's an expert at what she does with that thing. If she hits a man in the right place, and I heard she knows all the sensitive points, she can give a man an orgasm and he not know it. Now that's what I call the ultimate wet dream." This hadn't registered with me until I stepped out of the car. Could this be? No. I don't want to get my hopes up high. It wasn't possible Alex could be a mile away from Max and I. If that's her, and who else could it be? The universe had lined up, and Alex would be ours in a matter of minutes. Did I inadvertently refer to Alex as ours? I can't think that way. She doesn't belong to me or Max anymore. When I reached for the door, my heart almost jumped from my chest, and I felt lightheaded. "No. I'm hungry. That's all," I mumbled, stepping inside the bar. The smell of beer, the sound of men laughing, groaning and cursing, and then all that stopped because they turned and glared at me. I had no tattoos, no jeans and vests or flannel shirt with the sleeves cut off. I didn't have a bike, but drove up in an Uber. But what I did have on was a black suit, white shirt open because of the heat, my tie in my pocket. I looked like what they probably thought. I didn't belong here. I raised my hands, smiled, and the men turned and resumed doing what they had been doing a few seconds earlier. I strode up to the bar, and it had 2 vacant spots, and I took one. This large guy with tattoos everywhere, neck, hands, and probably places only his woman had seen, came close and leaned over the bar and looked me in the eyes. "What can I do for you, stranger?" "I need something to eat. Preferably, nothing that's going to make me sick later." I waited for a laugh, but then I noticed this was his bar, because there was a picture of him holding a dollar bill, and that's why he wasn't laughing. "We have chili, and if that doesn't kill you it will make you strong." And he winked. I didn't know how to take that, but I was hungry, and when you're as hungry as I had been all day, dying of bad food or passing out in here from lack of it, took a hard second, because who knows what they would have done to me if I had passed out. If or when I'd woken, I could have been fucked by any number of these men to prove a point. The point being, don't be a bitch in a bar full of bikers. "I'll take that and a shot of vodka." The best you have. Another mistake. He glared at me and reached for a bottle and poured me a shot. Then he hit a bell. A pretty blonde about 25 came in and he said, "A bowl of chili for my friend here. He likes it hot." I hadn't been in Texas for a while, but never at a place like this, but I knew when he said hot Texas style, it had been known for hot peppers and other things I didn't want to think about. "A large bowl," one corrected him. The waitress, wearing all black, her black tee showing her ample breasts, stared at me, narrowed her eyes as if she must have thought she knew me, but I didn't recognize her. My hopes had been dashed to hell the moment I realized that no one in that bar fit the description of Alex. My Alex wouldn't be caught dead in this bar, and in a costume like that, and part of the costume a straw hat, tight jeans, white shirt, and a whip. Looking at the men, that wasn't Alex's style. These surly men looked as if they didn't have enough money between them to pay for one of Alex's purses. However, when she smiled at the owner or bartender, my heart skipped a beat. It was Alex all right, and she had recognized me, but hoped I didn't recognize her. Why would she pretend she didn't know me? Then I glanced at the owner, and the glint in his eyes told me the story. I'd seen that in so many men's eyes, and even my own. He was in love with her, and he didn't want anyone around who looked like they would give him competition. But for some unknown reason, he hadn't been able to control her. "Here's your chili, sir." I turned and placed my hand on her wrists before she walked away, and she stared into my eyes, then down at my hand, and because of that I knew it was her. "Don't touch my waitress," the barkeeper said. Alex turned to him. "I can take care of myself, Brandon. You pay me for my services, but you don't own me." His eyes lowered and I knew she owned him. She was his mistress, his dominatrix. I didn't know what she'd done. I didn't want to know and why, but it had to be BDSM, and now he was her slave. Alex picked up the chili and the bottle of liquor, placed the shot glass over it and said, "Follow me." I did as she'd said because I was her slave now, as well as Max had been. Max had tried to walk away from her, but he couldn't. Alex owned him the way she now owned me. She brought me to the back of the bar, away from the pool room with the loud noises of cues hitting balls. She gazed at me, and we sat at a large booth. My heart beat loudly, and I thought she heard it. When she touched my hand, I looked around, and the owner of the bar wore a sad glare. Whatever they had together had come to an end, because now she'd chosen me in his eyes. "What are you doing here, Alex?" "That's a long story," as they said. "My question is, did you track me here? Because if you were able to do that, then someone else will find me. Someone like Max, and I want to get to my children before he realizes it and hide them away from me. If he thinks I'm dead, I'll have a better chance of taking them out of the country." Do you hear what you're saying, Alex? You aren't thinking straight. There is nowhere you can go that Max can't find you. I had begun to worry about Alex's state of mind, as well as Max's. "You can't do that. Max will never let you take the children, and besides he wants you to come home. I want you to." I meant that, in a different way than what I thought Alex was thinking. She placed her hand over mine, and the heat from that touch took me back to the yacht, and how I felt being inside her and next to her, smelling her scent and tasting her skin. Now I could feel my length swelling and pre-cum dripping, and I pulled my hand away from hers to her surprise. "Did I do something to you where you can't stand my touch?" I glanced up at Alex, and I just locked eyes with her. "You know deep inside that you will never do anything to me that will make me despise your touch. My feelings are too strong for you now, and that is impossible. It's just that I can't reason with you when it comes to Max. You have this thought in your head about him that doesn't match up with Max now. Trust me when I say he's changed. Give him a second chance." Alex's eyebrow raised and she tightened her jaw. I knew she wasn't convinced after what we'd been through. "It can't be, Jonas. If Max found out what went on that ship, he'll never let me close to my children, and he'll prevent us both from being anywhere near them. Who knows what he'll do? You don't know him like I do. He's capable of anything." I knew from the beginning what Max was capable of. And I didn't think Alex knew the extent when it came to her and his children, and to think that he could lose them would put us both in jeopardy. I can't forgive myself. Me and you and what happened to you, I said, locking eyes with her. Once again Alex reached for my hand and I didn't flinch. I needed her touch to make me feel as if everything we'd done would be all right, and we could go on as if nothing had changed between us, but it had. My thoughts and desires were if or when I connected with Max again, I'd beg him to return to him, but when I thought about how he treated me and you, I don't want that anymore. There existed a long silence between us. I didn't hear the noise of men talking and pool cues hitting balls, or the stomp of cowboy booths across the wooden sawdust floor. I placed my free hand over Alex's. He's changed, Alex. You can't want this kind of life. I glanced around at all the roughnecks and weekend cowboys drinking and staggering around. Some glaring at me because they've fallen in love with Alex, as I had. I'm here because I don't have enough money to do what I need. To be with my children. Soon I will have enough. Brandon pays me extra for services I perform. I narrowed my glance and furrowed my brow. No. It's strictly professional. We aren't involved sexually because he can't. I mean, he was a soldier and, well, I don't want to discuss anything of that nature with you. It's private. I didn't want to do it at first, but after I learned and saw what happened to him, I agreed until I got enough money to go home. He understands and he won't stop me. I can give you all you need. I can get you a job if you don't want to take money from me. You can make enough in 1 month that will pay for you to travel to any country you want and take the children. And I can talk to Max for you because he loves you and needs you. You're breaking his heart, not to mention mine. She placed her hands on both sides of my face and leaned into me. Jonas, you know how much I love Max. I don't think it will work out because he will never forgive us. That's why I haven't told him what and how I was complicit in this mess. He doesn't need to know. You don't have to confess. Then I offered Alex a way out. Go away with me. Take the children with us and run. Didn't you just say that was impossible? Yeah. We're all fucked up. Me, you, and Max. We have to find a way to live with each other because I can't let you go, and you wouldn't be happy with anyone but Max. You're not at fault for anything that has occurred. Other than trying to keep other men from defiling me and helping me dispose of a body. You haven't done anything wrong. Max will blame me even if he was the cause of all this. Me being here, loving you, and not to mention what we did on that yacht. Max can't forgive himself. You have to come home. If you don't come, I'm going to come back for you. First I have to take care of your children, because Max is too distraught because he thinks you're dead. He's changed, Alex, and he will forgive anything you do. Do you think he'll forgive me for giving myself to you? Alex slanted her head. We didn't have a choice. I said he's changed, but it won't do any of us a service by admitting anything that happened. It's in the past and we have got to move on. I didn't want to lie to her, therefore I told half-truths. I stood. Alex, go to this ranch if you change your mind about working for that soldier. You're doing risky things. Not as risky as marrying that sadist. At least I can get out of this without being hunted. Then if you think you'll be okay, got to this address and tell the man there I sent you. He needs a housekeeper and cook, even if he think he doesn't. A beautiful woman like yourself, he won't tell you to go away. He'll pay you more money in a month than you will make in here, working for a year. I have to go. I'm taking care of the children while Max searches for you. That was a convenient lie. When Alex glared up at me and I dropped the card after writing the address on the back, I stared and took a full breath. Leaving her again broke my heart. Chapter 14. Jonas. I leaned and gave Alex a kiss, and this time she held onto my hand as if she was bogged down in quicksand, and she was covered up to her head and I was her lifeline, the only one who could pull her out. I paused a moment and stared down at her and shook my head. Things had changed, and this time I was the one who'd been there to help her, and she knew it. Before, it was me looking for a helping hand to straighten out my life. Finally, I was the one she turned to. I was the one constant in her life, as she'd been in mine when Max had given up on me. I hated to leave her here, but I was determined to get back to her tonight. I just had to talk to Max first. When I headed in the direction of the door, the bartender stopped me and blocked my exit. "What do you want with Alex?" I reached to open the door without answering him, and he pushed it shut. Turning, I glared at him. "I asked you a question," he said. "You don't want to piss me off. I've had a long day and I haven't eaten, and I'm like a rabid dog when this happens. Trust me, you don't want to fuck with me," I barked, reaching for the door and a second time having it pushed closed. Alex must have seen us together, and she knew me and my body gestures, and came up behind the barkeeper. "What's wrong?" she questioned. "I was wondering what gave him the right to kiss you." Alex furrowed her brow. "The question you should ask is what's giving you the right to question my—" Alex paused and I took over. "I have more rights than anyone. I'm her brother-in-law." I didn't have to explain, but I made a mistake of telling the truth like I always do when I don't think things through. "I'm sorry, Alex." "No, you're not. You had no reason to cross-examine him. I told you if you started to act like a possessive husband or boyfriend, that our relationship would come to an abrupt end. It has now ended and I'm leaving." Alex looked up at me. "Take me out of here, Jonas." "You were right. I'm going with you." I placed my arm around Alex, opened the door for her, as the barkeeper stared as if he didn't know what to say, or he was stunned, or maybe thinking about stopping us. I didn't know and I didn't care, because now I was angry, and I'd protect her from anyone who dared touch her. In any case, we left without an incident. Standing on the outside, I said, "I have to call a taxi. You wouldn't by any chance be riding one of these Harleys?" Alex chuckled. "I wish," she said. "But I'm driving a gas guzzler, and it takes a lot of petrol, especially since gas was more expensive than food at this point." Alex pointed to the car she was driving, and we rushed to the Jeep before the bartender could round up enough friends to stop us. Then Alex started the car, and drove like her life depended on it. She sucked in a deep breath. "Where to, Jonas?" "I'm staying with this friend off of I-10 on the way to Austin, and he's the one who needs help. Can I borrow your Jeep after I get you acquainted with him? He doesn't want help, but he needs it. I know you will be safe with him until I can take care of the mess Max and I got you into." I wouldn't exactly call it a mess, Jonas. It was more like a shit storm, and it will take a lot to make me forget that I killed a living human being. He wasn't a human, Alex. I turned to her, placed my hand on her arm. "I have something to tell you once I speak to Max. He wants me to see to the children while he's gone." After explaining to Alex where we were headed, and I put it into the GPS, we could talk now without her asking where should she turn. I sat back and kept my eyes on the road, wondering how this was going to work. I had to tell Max first that Alex was here, and I hadn't told her about his face change. "There's something I have to tell you first," Alex said, taking her eyes off the road for a second. On the drive to meet the new Max, I didn't tell her how Max had changed. It was in appearance, and I'd hoped he'd made some progress concerning his behavior and state of mind since I last spoke to him. What Alex had to tell me, I'd already suspected. She explained how she'd met this doctor on a yacht in the Gulf of Mexico, after she'd been rescued from the shark-infested waters of the Gulf wearing only a survival suit. "He was kind," she'd said in a soft, caring voice. "I didn't know him, but for a short time, and if he'd asked me to stay on with him, I would have. I was just too tired to face Max again, after what we've been through." She said how the doctor was gentle and a nice guy, but he had problems. She didn't elaborate on his problems, and I didn't care to ask for more. The car became silent for a few seconds, and I turned on the radio to fill that silence with music. One of Sting's song, "The Shape of My Heart," had been playing on the radio, and the words rang true for me and Alex. I turned and glanced over at her, and I saw her wipe under her eyes with her free hand. I knew Alex to be a sucker for soft music and a sob story, and I knew that doctor could have been her worst nightmare if she'd stuck around. But that's the way it is. She had to be in this car with me going to see the man who loved her as much as I did, Maximilian Blackstone. Jonas, when you leave, take the Jeep, but when you get to the airport, don't come back for that car. Leave it there and wipe it of fingerprints. I'll tell you about it later. I trusted that Alex would tell me the truth. She always did, and before I fell in love with her in the way I had, I'd tell her the truth. The truths I'd tell now were filled with lies to protect us. I'd tell her that we could go on like nothing had changed between us before that fortuitous day when we laid with each other, and I'd caress her silky hair and hold her in my arms when she was frightened of Christian because he forced us to sleep together. I'd tell her I would never want her, and wouldn't pursue her even if she and Max didn't make it. I'd tell her that I could go on without her, but in truth, that would be the worst lie I could ever tell. We're here, she said, glancing around. This is a great place. I thought one day I'd take my children from that cold, isolated home, and they'd be able to experience something different besides New York and Montana. This home looks warm and inviting. When I glanced at her, she'd turned off the motor and was sitting with a strange smile on her lips. Just one thing, stay in here until I break the news that I'd found someone. My friend is the sort who likes his privacy. Before Alex asked questions, I'd bolted out of the Jeep and opened the door to the house, and there, sitting near the patio in a large chair that swiveled around, was Max. What are you doing sitting in the dark? Turning on a soft light, Max turned and I saw a glass of liquor in his hand. I strolled over and removed it from his fingers. Max sat back without objection, his fingers in the same position clutching the now phantom glass. It was different and scary to see him sitting in the dark and drinking. Because I never could tell Max what to do, it would be difficult now. Max had always known the right thing, but he was in a daze somewhere I couldn't reach him. Look at me, Jonas, Max said, shaking his head at me. I don't recognize myself anymore. I could hear in his voice he was down, and nothing but a jolt could get his heart racing again. That's because you aren't yourself. You have to learn to live with that face. It's a handsome face and more attractive than the one you had. When you get over your loss, then maybe you can see what I mean. The face you have now is mature. Women like a man who looks like his face has lived. When your gray hair comes in stronger than it is now, women will fall over you to get to you. I don't want that. When have I ever wanted any women but Alex? Since Alex has been with him, never have I seen Max as obsessed over one woman and her over him. Their love was scary and haunting. They had a need to be together that no one could come between, not even me. Not even now, not ever, and I came to that realization years ago. Alex felt sorry for me, and she wanted to help Max's little brother. However, the day I laid with her was the day I grew up, and my desire became too strong, and I knew then I would have to go. But I couldn't, and I don't want to now. That's what I wanted to tell you. Look at me, Max. I found her. Max rose quickly and walked to the kitchen to get his phone. Give me her number and call her. I don't have to call her, she's outside. He stood with his mouth wide. When he found his voice, he said, Then why isn't she here so I can beg her to come back to me and forgive me? I need to apologize to her. I need her now. His voice broke. You can't do that. Remember, you have to let her get used to your new face, and that new you I've been telling you about. You have to work on everything if you expect to get her back. It was you who put her in that risky situation. Max must have been working on the new Max, because he let me talk and agreed with me the whole time. Which shocked the hell out of me. I'm going to the car and bring her in. Don't say anything because she doesn't know who you are, and for fuck's sake talk with a low, soft tone. Don't let her recognize your voice, until you've given her time to fall in love with you again. She's been through so much. Don't run her away. You can do this. Remember when you first met her, and you wanted to give her the world, and you wanted her to marry you. That's the man she has to see. But she won't be falling in love with me, it will be someone else. Does it matter? You are someone else. You are the one who taught me the end justifies the means, and as long as you get your beautiful wife and mother of your children back safely home, who cares if she falls for the new Max, and you'd better hope she wants the new one, because I don't think anyone can take the old Max again, and that includes me. Just go and get her. I know what I have to do.